Gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Buck.
Thank you.
Mr. Hur, they say they save the best for last, so I'm looking forward to this opportunity. First of all, what I've observed in this hearing is that one side thinks you're trying to get President Trump elected, and the other side thinks you're trying to get President Biden elected. I served as a prosecutor for 25 years. I know that you're going to take grief from both sides. You must be doing a great job in your report and during your investigation if you have convinced both sides that you are somewhere in the middle. I commend you for your background. I would have loved to have met Chief Justice Rehnquist. What a hero to conservatives and really Americans, and that must have been a great opportunity for you. But when both sides attack you, my admonition is welcome to Congress. How many, I do have a question, and it goes along the lines of what Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Fry were asking you earlier. I'm really confused about willfulness and your view of willfulness. It's clear to me that at the time, Vice President Biden knew he had classified documents. He told his, after he left the vice presidency, he told his biographer, ghostwriter, those classified documents are in the basement. So he had the mental state that he had classified documents. He also knew that his basement was not a SCIF. It is not a secure area. And so at the point, if at that point in time he said, oh my gosh, I've got to call the archivist, I've got to call Secret Service somebody and get these documents taken away, perhaps he has this defense of acting as quickly as he knew about the documents. But I don't see where the willfulness is missing when he had those two. The element's pretty clear. He possessed classified documents. He held them in a non-secure area, and he did so knowingly. He knew he had classified documents in an unsecure area. Where is the willfulness missing?
Well, sir, prosecutor to prosecutor, I certainly agree with you that the evidence in the form of the audio recorded statement where the president said to his ghostwriter, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, that is evidence that that any prosecutor would present as significant evidence in a case if this went to trial. And reasonable jurors might well infer that President Biden formed criminal intent based on that piece of evidence. But what we did in our report was to try to walk through exhaustively. You know well as a prosecutor, you need to assess with a very cold eye the strengths of your case and the weaknesses of your case, and try to anticipate arguments that defense counsel might well present at trial. And what we tried to do in our report was to walk through potential arguments that would be presented by defense lawyers at the president's trial, and to determine how, by our judgment, how jurors would receive and perceive the evidence presented, including but not limited to evidence relating to the president's memory gaps that were in various pieces of evidence that we assessed.
So how do you overcome that recording where he says, I've got classified documents? He's 30 years in the Senate or whatever it is. He obviously knows how he has to treat classified documents. I've got classified documents in the basement. What is the defense to that? That it was a made-up recording, that it wasn't his voice, that everyone was wrong? How do you defend that particular fact, as well as, I did a lot of tax cases, you had to prove a pattern of conduct. And in this case, he had a lot of documents in a lot of places. How do you overcome those things?
Yes, Congressman. So we walk through a number of different evidentiary gaps that reasonable jurors might focus on, as well as a number of different defense arguments that the president's defense lawyers could present at trial. The first is a theory or an argument to the jury that the president, yes, he did say to his ghostwriter, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, but then soon thereafter forgot about the documents. And therefore, it would be difficult to convince a jury that actually he knew that it was illegal to keep the documents, and he continued to do so. A second argument that we considered is that perhaps these documents never actually were in Virginia in his private rental home there. Perhaps the documents were there by virtue of staff or himself having those documents at the Delaware home from the time that he was still vice president all the way through the time of their being discovered. And finally, another theory that we walk through in the report is that there were 2 folders of marked classified documents relating to Afghanistan found in the box in the president's Delaware garage. One of them contained national defense information, and the other, it would be a more difficult task to persuade a jury that it did contain national defense information. So that argument would be premised on perhaps the president was referring to the one folder that didn't contain national defense information, but was not. It would be difficult for the government to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he possessed the one that did contain national defense information. So I just laid a lot on you there, but we do our best to explain that at some length in the report.
Thank you. I yield back.